As a child, my parents did not allow us to have dogs or cats or anything, so they would send me to some horse camps. I loved the animals, and in junior high I started training dogs for money. Ninth grade I was doing some trail guiding for money. Admittedly, I was in love with horses, and one thing my dad challenged me with was, you can never be good with horses because you were born and raised in the city. But I kind of got my thing up and it's like, oh yes, I will. So I planned for this career with horses and ended up going to college for light horse management. I had a horse and 2 dogs and did well there. It's hard to be different. When I was younger, my school years were pretty miserable. I had really thick glasses. I was very small. I wasn't good at sports, so I got picked on quite a lot. It got rougher when I went to junior high and high school. There was physical hitting and everything else. I was just a shadow of who I really was. There was so much of me that was hidden that I would never show to anybody. Admittedly, the animals were what actually brought me through because they didn't do that. First time I realized a religious vocation was in grade school. I did know that you would have to give up everything to become a nun, but I was like, can't give up the horses or the dogs. So I said no, and so I put it aside until about 25 or so years of age, when I had done everything that I'd wanted to do, pursued animal careers, and then the call came back, and it came back really strong. I was a riding instructor when I was about 25 or so. I was cleaning the stalls, and I made the decision right then and there. It's like, okay, Lord, I will give up everything. I'll become a nun. Horses, dogs, I will give them up. I could not find a community that felt right in my heart. It just, nothing felt right. And I was reading some quotes from the Diary of St. Faustina. And when I read especially one particular quote, Diary 531, it was, "Your purpose and that of your companions is to unite yourselves with me as closely as possible. Through love, you will reconcile earth with heaven. You will soften the just anger of God." And I was like, yes. It was like I knew when I read that quote that that was the community I was called to be in. It set my heart on fire.
Over the next 30 years, her vocational journey led her to join the Poor Clares, while the desire and clarity to spread divine mercy with animal therapy grew stronger.
It just got to a point, it was just like a volcano, and it was just like, I can't take this, holding this in anymore. So I talked to the abbess, because when you're in solemn vows and you try to leave your community, that's a very serious matter. So she really tested me quite a bit. But then, she and then the council voted to allow me to do it. And so October 22nd, feast of St. John Paul II, I left the monastery to come to Wisconsin here.
Within 4 years, Bishop Callahan of the Diocese of La Crosse, Wisconsin, approved the new order, the Franciscan Congregation of Divine Mercy, which had now located to a farm in Marshfield, Wisconsin. Months later, Sister Mary Veronica would be joined by 2 more sisters, where they would begin classes with animal therapy programs, with a special focus on children and families.
In the Diary of St. Faustina, it talks about that the work of this congregation has a special role in defending the souls of children from the spirit of evil. And we're seeing so many beautiful parents trying to help their children love the Lord, but there are some strains, or the parents inadvertently end up being too authoritarian, not respecting the children's freedom like our Lord does. And then that becomes a hindrance for the children to really see His goodness. When we talk about our charism, it's living mercy in your daily life and reconciling relationships with self, others, and God. So the more we can help the parents work through their fears, their traumas that they received when they were children, the more that's going to help them be the parents that God calls them to be and really show forth His love and mercy. There's one family in particular I'm thinking of And it's just beautiful to see. It's only been about a year. Not that it hasn't been hard work on everyone's part, but the children are happier. God is working.
Last year, one of our sons was diagnosed with autism, and I couldn't process it. And I started going through some therapy with Mother, and she helped me so much. Then we brought our son with autism and one of the other ones who is very sensitive, and he takes everything to heart, even having some suicidal thoughts, to see Mother specifically for trauma therapy. And our family has become so much more peaceful. He's so much more able to handle the emotions, and he's not as afraid of feeling angry, and he's not as afraid of feeling sad.
I've been receiving spiritual direction from Mother for 3 years. Mother's really helped me to learn a healthy communication, and there's been a lot of healing in my family. I suppose that's because I was able to start believing that Jesus truly loved me and I was good enough.
As parents of 6 children, it's a lot of work, and sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves, and that translates to being kind of hard on our kids too. And that's been something that my husband and I have really needed to hear and be encouraged, when we really just need to embrace them and love them.
When Nora started coming out here, Mother gave her the ownership of training the horses.
We'll actually talk about, well, what are you learning with your interaction with the animals? You know, just like you do with the animals, in relationships you encourage the right behavior, but you give them the freedom to make that right choice. So the positive reinforcement training has helped our kids receive God's healing, but also us as parents, because we cannot give mercy unless we learn how to receive it. And so working with the animals, that's all part of the ministry, because it does bring it all together to accept God's mercy and to share God's mercy with others.
We really want our son to grow up around the true Catholic culture, and I've seen kids become maybe even more themselves when they come out here.
You've got to rebuild the family if you're going to rebuild society. We're going to have to do all that in order to reconcile earth with heaven, but the difference it can make in families, the difference possibly between a suicide and not a suicide. A lot of people are very estranged from themselves, and of course others, and with God. It needs to be a holistic approach. There are people who say that we saved their marriage. My dad did not believe that I could be good with animals. And then he was convinced I was good with animals. And then he's telling me that you have to do the stuff you know with the animals. So I got his blessing, which was really wonderful. God has his own ways, and it may take many years before you really see what the picture is. Humility isn't about denying you have any abilities. It's about giving God the praise and glory for what you do and letting it shine for good of our neighbor, and actually enjoying it.